Hi YouTube! Today we'll be reading the second half of the second chapter of R.L. Stine's The Hidden Evil. Hope you enjoy! We finished chapter 8, or page 8, so I'll be reading page 9 on. Maggie, Henrietta said warningly, we have received an alarming report from Dr. Marston, your father's physician. The bald constable explained. He hesitated, staring intently at Maggie and Henrietta. It seems, Maggie promoted impatiently. It seems your father did not die of a natural death. It seems someone poisoned him. Maggie felt as if the room had instantly grown dark. The only sound she could hear was the ticking of the pendulum clock, each tick so much louder than usual. Her head spun. I'm going to faint, she thought. He was murdered? She gasped in terror. Dr. Marston has made an error, Henrietta said firmly and calmly, but her face appeared pasty white. No mistake, the older constable replied. But who would have done such a thing? Maggie cried. She clenched her hands into fists. If someone had murdered her father, they would pay. Maggie would make them pay. That's what we wanted to ask you both, the younger constable replied, nervously twisting his cap in his hand. We wondered if your father had any enemies that you were aware of. Enemies? Henrietta echoed. Why, none that I can think of. No enemies at all? Maggie agreed. No enemies at all, Maggie agreed. How can you even ask such a thing? And yesterday both our servants had the day off, and our cook went home sick, Henriette added. Maggie and father had spent the evening alone. No one had the opportunity to... Henriette stopped short. Her mouth fell open slightly. Maggie felt her scalp prickle as she turned from Henrietta to the constables. Both men eyed her suspiciously. They couldn't believe Maggie would ever harm her own father. Could they? Is that true, miss? The older constable asked slowly. Were you and your father alone all evening? Why, yes, Maggie said. But that is utterly absurd, Henrietta cried, her voice growing higher and higher. You could not possibly think that just because they were arguing yesterday that Maggie would have a reason to... Her words trailed off. Arguing about what? The bald constable demanded. Henrietta gave Maggie a frightened look. Her hands fluttered nervously at her sides. Maggie turned to the constable. Not that it's any of your business, but father forbade me to see any young man for a whole week. He found out I'd gone coaching. Coaching? The older constable asked. Riding around the park in a coach and kissing, the younger constable muttered, his eyes on the ground. Yes. And so you said, Henrietta began. She stopped short, her cheeks turning bright red. Then she glanced guiltily at the constables. She said what? The bald constable asked sternly. Henrietta gave Maggie an apologetic look. She said what? The bald constable repeated, raising his voice. Oh dear, mumbled Henrietta. She said she was too old for him to control her life. Maggie swore she would never be forced to obey him again. Henrietta's lip began to quiver. Oh, Hen, Maggie thought, now you have done it. She almost started to laugh. It felt so strange that anyone could think her capable of killing her father. I'm afraid that we must ask permission to search the house, the bald constable said. The whole house, he added, staring straight at Maggie, including Miss Elston's sleeping quarters. Never! Cried Henrietta. Do you know what family you're dealing with? This is the Alston house, sir. Kindly remember where you are. Maggie had never seen Hen so this angry. How wonderful of Henrietta to defend her so fiercely, especially since her sister hated to argue. I'm sorry, miss, the bald constable told her, but we must do our search. Henrietta led the two constables out of the parlor. Her stiff back groan rustled loudly with each step. Maggie stayed where she was. Let them search her room. They would find nothing, of course. She could not be more innocent. But what if Dr. Marston was right? What if someone had murdered her father? Could someone have slipped into the house last night without her knowing it? Impossible! She could hear Henrietta arguing with the constables as they tramped up the front staircase. She stepped down the sofa. Her body felt heavy, as if lead filled her limbs. Colleen burst through the door. She appeared ready to burst into tears. You must come, miss. They are saying the most horrible things. It's a mistake, Maggie told Colleen. Do not worry. It is all a dreadful mistake. Please, Colleen began. Please talk to them. Maggie forced herself to stand. She made her way out of the parlor, with Colleen on her heels. Then she started up the wide staircase, gripping the carved banister tightly. My sister's innocent, she heard Henrietta cry. How dare you? Stop that! Stop that at once! You cannot touch her things! Stop! At the top of the stairs, Maggie turned down the long hall. Her room seemed so far away she didn't know if she had the strength to reach it. She wanted to lie down. She wanted to rest until the constables left, until they realized that no one could have wanted to kill her poor father. The door to her room stood open, and Maggie slipped inside. The bald constable held a candle while the younger man carefully searched through Maggie's belongings. He rolled up the top of her desk and poked through the contents of the tiny cubbyhole. "She is innocent!" Henrietta shrieked again and again. She clutched at the young constable, trying to stop his search. Blushing, he shrugged his arm free. "Henrietta," Maggie called. Her voice sounded small and far away. "It's all right. If the silly fools want to waste their time looking in my room, let them." Henrietta gasped as the young constable pulled something out of the second desk drawer. A glass vial. He removed the tiny cork from the vial and gingerly sniffed the liquid inside. "It is poison," he declared. "Then we have found the murderess," the bald constable announced. "It's Maggie Alston."
It's 3:45.
Bye, YouTube. Hope you have a good day.